Let's just say it straight. You've been asking God to bless a life that you refuse to take responsibility for. You're not stuck. You're scared. You're soft. You're spiritually lazy. And then you call it surrender. And then you get offended by people like me because I say the things that your pastor will not say. That God is not going to do it for you. You say that you're waiting on God. No. You're waiting for Him to make it easy. You want the weight lifted without building the strength. You want the breakthrough without having to face the battle. You want the freedom while spoon feeding your flesh every chance that you get. And look, here's the truth that nobody's going to tell you. You're not under attack. You're under conviction. And you're mistaking the two. The moment that life gets heavy, you sit and you cry out for deliverance. When maybe God isn't trying to deliver you. Maybe He's trying to develop you. But you don't want that. You just want out. And if it's not instant, then you sit and you try to call it a closed door. Let's talk real for a minute. Some of y'all were raised in churches that convinced you that discipline was legalism, that the suffering was some kind of punishment, that God just wants you to be safe, nice, comfortable, and live this happy little life. No. You were sold domesticated gospel. The kind that was stripped of power, that was stripped of the grit, that was stripped of all the responsibility. And now you're sitting there, spiritually fat, emotionally entitled, and mad that your life still looks the same after 10 years of believing. Because you've never actually been trained. You've just been pacified, and deep down, you know it. You're not stuck. You've just become a professional excuse maker. And you know what? This is what makes it worse. You sat and you've spiritualized your excuses. You sit and you pray circles around your inaction, right? And then you slap scripture on the avoidance. You call laziness waiting on the Lord. You call fear wisdom. All the cycles that you're in, you just call them seasons. But guess what? You're not tired. You're not too busy. You're not under-resourced. You're not broke. You're not waiting for confirmation. You're just not ready to be brutally honest with yourself. God has already spoken. You just didn't like the answer. And if this or any other message that I put out offends you, you might want to keep watching. Because offended people typically aren't hurt. They're exposed. That offense that you feel in your gut right now, that heat that you can feel burning behind your eyes, that's not me being harsh. That is your spirit recognizing the lie that you've been living under. You're mad at me because I said it raw. But everything that I'm saying, God's already whispered in your ear. You just brushed it off. Look, the truth doesn't wound. It cuts. And sometimes that gets deep. And it only hurts when you've been protecting that infection for too long. You want to know when everything changed in my life? When I finally stopped blaming God for the results that I never got up and worked for. I was praying like crazy. I was journaling. I was listening to the right voices, right? The right music, but I was still undisciplined. I was still holding on to all those little secret sins. Still soft in my body. My leadership was weak. And I was still living in this emotionally reactive state. I was expecting God to rebuild a life that I refused to take responsibility for until he hit me with just one word. Move. not cry, not wait, not move. And then when I finally did, everything started to change. Because I stopped asking God to carry what I was already called to conquer. James 2:17, faith without works is dead. You can't outpray disobedience. You can't outworship passivity. You can't claim the promise if you won't even get up and carry the weight. Matthew 25, the parable of the talents. The guy who did nothing with what he was given, God called him lazy and wicked. Not overwhelmed, not mentally exhausted, lazy and wicked. Look, this energy, this style of coaching is exactly what I bring. You will not survive in my world if you need to be told that everything is going to be okay. Because it's not. I'm not here to coddle. I'm here to coach the warrior out of you. But if you need another year to process, don't show up. Because I don't look for watchers. I look for people who are finally done, finally over making the excuses, finally ready to find a way, figure it out, and make some moves. Look, if you're watching, open your phone. Write this out word for word. What am I still waiting for God to do that He has already commanded me to move on? Now sit with it. Because that is your battle. Not your marriage, not your past, not your schedule. Your battle is the obedience that He's already called you to. God's not going to do it for you. He already gave you the permission. He's already given you the plan. He built you with the power. You're not waiting on heaven. Heaven is waiting on you. So get up, move. Share this with that strongest person that you know who's been sitting there acting like a victim. And look, if you're finally ready to rise, you know where to find me. This is Unshakable. And this is just the beginning. Hit subscribe.